Hi, how's everybody doing today? This is Rich here on behalf of Rich TV Live with our very special guest, Kiran Sidhου. How you doing today, Kiran?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. Excited to have you on the show today.
I'm
And
excited.
you guys have had some amazing things happen recently. I'm going to
True.
let you talk about it. There's some news today, so I don't know where you want to start. So I'll let
Well,
you start.
let's start with the macro environment. I mean, nothing could be better than the macro environment we're seeing right now in the United States. Okay, and we know that we have a new president coming in, and we know that Kamala Harris, the vice president, in her debate with Mike Pence, basically she said that they're looking to deschedule cannabis.
Wow.
That they can do by executive order, right? So no longer will cannabis be criminal at the federal level come next year, and that is under FDA auspices. What that does, putting aside congressional actions, is that, as we know, that California, Oregon, and Nevada have been discussions about forming a trade bloc around cannabis, and that will actually make that trade bloc a reality. I think in terms of manufacturing assets and cultivation assets in Oregon, in terms of just assets, forgetting about in terms of market share, we're number one now with Winberry. But in terms of actual assets, we're definitely top three. You start putting the BarX asset on, which is the largest grow north of San Francisco, south of Portland, ever, planned. And we start planning that in March. I mean, I want any other company to put their hands up and say, we are better positioned than Halo. Because honestly, I think for federal legalization, sitting where we sit, literally on the Oregon California border, having our 6-acre campus in Ukiah, having our large, I'd say about now 10 acres of manufacturing and grows here in Oregon. I don't see any company that's better positioned given what's happening federally. And the second part of the federal, this is my personal view of what's going on federally, is, everyone's talking about Congress. Let's say Congress does stay 52-48. The 2 Georgia seats do go to the Republicans. You still have Murkowski, Alaska, recreational state, moderate Republican. Collins, Maine, recreational state, moderate Republican, who said they will vote for cannabis reform. Our balance sheet is stellar. Again, I want to know another balance sheet in cannabis, and people probably have it. Maybe Ayers one, maybe GTI's one, that has a current ratio like our current ratio. So we are, stock price aside, which can easily be fixed, we can easily list on NASDAQ. And that's something that, if everything goes well and we actually have real bank accounts with real banks, we get real credit lines with real banks, and we're able to go on NASDAQ, that's something we're definitely preparing for.
Wow.
So I think on a macro basis, I think everything is looking really, really good.
So hold on. You're preparing for NASDAQ.
Absolutely. In my mind, we're preparing for NASDAQ. Now, a lot of people say, well, Kiran,
Wow.
that's a real long shot. And what I'm telling people is, I don't think it's a long shot within a year. I think in reality, again, Biden has a great relationship with McConnell. As people know, McConnell was the only Republican senator that went to his son's funeral. I think I am very optimistic about what the opportunities are in the United States. And I, from where I sit, believe that there's no better place than Oregon, and sitting literally on the Oregon-California border with our assets and the way they're done, because no one can grow as much weed as cost effectively, as high quality as we can outdoors and in hoop houses and in greenhouses in the triangle.
Now, some people are saying that they think that going to the NASDAQ is, when you're a 5 cent, 7 cent stock, is a little bit unrealistic.
I think
How do you expect to get the
I
stock?
think
before
I think they
$5?
should smoke this, because once all we have to do is consolidate the stock, right? So we have no intention right now of consolidating the stock, but if NASDAQ opens up, we consolidate the stock. That's all we have to do. Look at our balance sheet. Look at our
And,
balance
and
sheet,
I agree with
line
you.
it up,
I agree
right?
with you. I'll give you a
Our
great example.
balance sheet, our income statement, everything allows us to go NASDAQ. Maybe not NMS, but we can easily get to NASDAQ. The only thing he's right is a 7.5%, or she is right, is a 7.5% stock. But that is easily fixable, right?
Well, I mean, my biggest thing is if we're looking for value as investors, we want the stock to be low.
Right.
So we have to figure out why is it staying low, and it's probably a combination of the fact that you've used a lot of your shares to acquire your growth, and that
Correct.
puts a lot of downward pressure on the stock because there's almost 1 billion shares in the
Right.
outstanding. So that's the number one reason why the stock is down. It's not because they're not making money now, because you
Right.
are making money, right, Kiran?
Correct. So by any definition, we're making money. Okay. So we have positive operating cash flow. Positive operating cash flow. Hello. That is real cash flow. Okay. That's not something manufactured. EBITDA. We have positive EBITDA. So my banker today, Blake Corbett at PI, said, Kiran, one thing you have to emphasize to people is they look at your positive EBITDA and they say, oh, well, that positive EBITDA is a function of IFRS accounting gimmickry around your gross. And strip that out. Strip out the IFRS effect of 2 million. By the way, that's really an $8 million gain, of which we've only taken 2 million. I right now physically am going to go down the street to our farms, and there's $8 million of product there. That's
Wow.
all paid for. That's all harvested. All it costs me is another $50 per pound to deliver that to market. And we're talking Turpogs genetics, DNA genetics. Look at this. So here, this is a 5.5 grams of usable cannabis. This is a 10 pack. This is 17.7%. Okay. This, I have a 60% margin at a retail price of $10.
Wow. That's huge.
Yeah. I mean, from a Canadian perspective, this product in Canada would sell probably for 30 or 40 bucks.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's kind of silly. I mean, we have a great lineup. We're starting to launch all the Turpogs products, whole nug pre-rolls. In California, this goes on a per pound basis for 1,800 bucks, right? This is great stuff. I mean, this is their Z smoothie. This is award-winning stuff.
What about the fact that the climate in the United States right now for cannabis stock seems to be really hot? GTII reported massive revenues.
Right.
Trulieve reporting massive revenues. Curaleaf reporting massive revenues. It just seems like the trend is that these companies are pulling big numbers right now.
Of course.
The sign of we've turned the corner now in cannabis, and now it's going to be what we thought it was, especially in America, one of the hottest, fastest growing sectors in the world. We're seeing it with Trulieve, Grow Generation Corp, IIPR, Scott's Miracle Grow, GTII, Curaleaf, and yourself, where the revenues are really growing exponentially. Is the time now for people to start looking back into cannabis?
Well,
all
I have to say is Friday, my hold comes up. So, from my perspective, I find it silly. I'm sitting here looking at my market cap at 63 million Canadian. Let's say that's 40 million US. I just showed pro forma, no leaps of faith, no 30% growth, 30 million, which is 45 million Canadian, right? Just in Oregon alone, right? And the thing about it is putting up huge revenue is great, but we're putting up huge revenue with increased operating margins and positive cash flow.
In the middle of a global pandemic.
In the middle of a global pandemic, in the middle of Oregon just today went into the most draconian shutdown, and California went into the most draconian shutdown.
Do you think that people are smoking more cannabis because they're at home?
Absolutely.
So this is in some ways actually helping the sector.
Right.
It's almost working as a catalyst because people are at home and they got more free time. They're sitting home smoking cannabis and they're watching Netflix, and they're buying products on Amazon. This seems to be what people are doing. And you can see stocks like Amazon have done well and Netflix have done well. There have been stocks and the market has done extremely well. Bitcoin is going crazy. So the market, especially for investors, has become this whole new market now where people are learning how to make money from home.
Right. And so the one thing about cannabis is medicine.
Yes.
And, you hear about everyone being at home and you hear about all this domestic violence and all these issues. But if someone's going to have, if you're going to pop an edible, right? Or you're going to hit a dab, right? You're going to be chill. You're going to be at home. You're going to be chill, right? You're not going to be, people ain't going to be beating each other up at home. People ain't going to be protesting. My whole thing, I always joke about this, is I said, the best thing that could happen is some government could invent a big cannabis bomb so that if someone wants to, if people are at war, they should just take a bomb and blow up a huge cannabis, spray over the group of people so everyone just chills out, right? It's like it's my ending joke, right? I always put granted, I got the Ivy League education. I've done all of that. I was a banker, but I think people sometimes take themselves awfully seriously, and we're in the cannabis business, and part of what we're doing in the cannabis business is helping people who have palliative conditions, like my mom, who needs her CBD THC and she doesn't take the opiates. We're helping people chill. We're helping people who have anxiety. We're helping people who have cancer, and it's generally something that's good. And it's not like alcohol the next day. If you do take a little bit too much of an edible, you're going to be a little foggy, but you don't really have these massive hangovers. I mean, it's a great medicine.
So I'm just doing the numbers here. So a 100-to-1 reverse,
right?
Make this to $7.
Oh yeah, but you don't need to do it. You don't need to do a reverse right now.
No. I'm not saying right now. I'm just saying, I want to make it clear to people that it's not a far-fetched thing to do.
Oh no, it's not far-fetched.
I'll give you an example of someone who did it, and
right.
FSD Pharma.
Right. Of course, FSD Pharma did it.
And Aurora, they don't have any revenue.
No, Aurora had to do it to keep on NYSE.
That's right. So, I mean, for a company to do a reverse that actually has revenue, that has EBITDA, that has employees, that has real sales, like Halo does.
And a balance sheet that's 10 million plus US to the good.
So you got $10 million.
I have $11 million of
in the
product. It's basically banked. It's sitting, 8 million is just sitting at my farms.
What about in the bank?
In the bank right now, I would say about $2 million. $2
million, and you don't have any toxic funders that are constantly
no debt. We have sub debt that is due in 2022 of 7 million, 7 to 8 million. Now let me put that in perspective.
You don't have to worry until 2022. You got runway.
Yeah, we got time. But the point is that was at 18 to 20 million. People have converted it down. We're at 7 to 8. That's all we have. We have zero debt. To repeat, zero debt. No, wait, that's not correctly. That's not correctively true. At BarX, which we have to consolidate, we have mortgage debt, but that is sole recourse to BarX. Okay, and then BarX. I mean, how do I say this in a nice way? Hello world. BarX is going to be the largest grow in the history of Northern California and Oregon.
Wow.
That's 60 acres. There are guys in Southern California that have larger grows, Pro Farms being one of them, maybe Ladybug Farms, but that's Southern California grows. That's completely different than Emerald Triangle grows. We hit 25% THC on really nice product with high terp content, because the Emerald Triangle, I keep emphasizing this, is to marijuana what the Carolinas are to tobacco, what the Great Plains are to wheat. Being in the Emerald Triangle gives you a huge advantage. I don't know how, in a nationally legalized environment, I don't know how a grower in Vermont or Michigan or New Jersey is going to compete with us. When we start taking material out there that is not 80% of what their material is, with branded strains at a fraction of their cost, I don't know how they compete.
What do you think about the transactions you guys are doing in Canada? Like, are we still waiting for those?
We're waiting for a GLC approval. And I think Canada, the way I view Canada is the number one market in North America is California. The number two market in North America is Canada. And the
Wow.
number three market is pretty much Florida if it goes recreational. But everything's sort of changing on its head. So the way I view it from a Halo perspective is you don't want to bite off more than you can chew. The international business, Andreas is moving over there. Gordy's heading out on Friday, and we have to put plants in the ground in December, which is the height of grow season. Our GACP's around the corner, and Louisa's just fiddling with term sheets. So she has the high class problem of figuring out which funding source we want to take. So that gets our international business going, and we'll start seeing meaningful impact from that in 2021, right? So that is, I'm Louisa, Andreas, and the whole team there, Roderick, great team. We spent 2 years developing these assets, and now we have from seed all the way to sale into the UK, right? And now we're putting the Malta piece together for the CGMP. I'm very confident with that, and that funding Louisa will get, and it'll mostly be debt funding. In North America, in Oregon, we have proven you can make really good money, and we'll continue to do so. So Winberry is just one of the transactions that we're going for in Oregon to consolidate the market. We are going to consolidate the Oregon market. God bless GTI. God bless True Relief. God bless Kira and their billion-dollar companies, and they're doing New Jersey and they're doing Florida. But we're going to prove to everyone, like we've been proving, that we're going to continue to grow at an accelerated pace, continue to deliver operating cash flow, and we're going to focus on Oregon and California. A lot of people say California is messy. It's messy, but we have great products in California that we're doing. Now we have the Hush line, which is our value line. We now have the Winberry line, which is a higher end sort of, let's call it, line for the for the normal people. We have Feel Better coming in with G-Easy, which is our Pro Series line. We have, again, great flower relationships with both the Terpogs guys and the DNA guys. So we're going to be putting out their products. So I think we have a great lineup. We just got to execute, and we got to continue to execute. So saying we have to execute is great, but we already have executed over the last 4 quarters. We just have to continue to execute on that ramp. And next year, Bar X alone is a $250 million play at $750 a pound. Ooh. For tissue cultured alien lab genetics. Hello, Jed and Josh own what? 20% or 20% of Connected. So, where do you think that weed isn't good weed? It's, again, top 3 weed in California.
Wow.
And that's a lot of things that people don't understand. And, like my girlfriend in Canada goes in and she buys, I just bought Whistler Organics most bougie weed for $80 in Canada. And then you look at that, you touch it, and you compare it to the Terpogs Z smoothie in California. And no disrespect to Whistler Organics, it ain't the same. And then when you ask the Canadians what's been going on, they said, look, we had an issue with genetics. Health Canada was tough on us. We couldn't bring in genetics, but now it's loosening up. So Health Canada's recognizing that. So, you guys have an unfair advantage over us and we'll catch up. And I honestly think they will. But honestly, with all due respect, do you think Aurora in Edmonton, at that giga complex they have with those huge machines and that indoor grow, right, can compete with us at Bar X outdoors in California if we had a completely global market? Their cost of delivery in Edmonton in power alone is probably more than my overall growing cost. So the way I'm looking at this in the medium to long term is that we're really well positioned. And God bless GTI, God bless True Relief, but they're all going to have to come and either buy someone like me or compete with someone like me, and they're all going to get Emerald Triangle religion at some point, especially if everything opens up.
So you're talking about some accelerated growth for 2021.
Accelerated growth. I'm talking about exponential growth.
Exponential growth. So let's talk about that. We got 30 people watching us right now that are, a lot of them are thinking about investing in Halo. A lot of them are looking at the price going, oh goodness, this is really cheap. And it's a really good company with no debt.
Right.
And money in the bank. And your revenues that you just reported, that's just the beginning, guys, because these acquisitions that Kiran and his team have done, that they used shares for mostly in the beginning of this year, you really paid for it because you didn't get a chance to show any of those revenues and book any of it until the last quarter. Is that correct? Correct.
The other thing about it is that every quarter we've shown accelerated growth.
Yes.
Organically.
Yes.
Now the acquisitions are starting to layer in. Now they're starting to pay back.
Yes.
And so a lot of people,
because of your positive cash flow for the first.
Right, but a lot of people say, God, you guys are spending so many, like 168 million shares for Winberry is accretive day one. You don't have acquisitions that are accretive. A lot of people have this word in their mind, dilutive, dilutive, dilutive. Now, if I could pick up another acquisition like Winberry, 14 million in revenue, 3 million in EBITDA, and I pay 6 to 7 million in my stock, to me, that's a no-brainer.
Of course. That's why you're public, is so you can use your shares to acquire your growth.
Right.
Isn't that the model? I mean, he's not using shares, but I mean, we look at the most successful investor of the last 80 years, Warren Buffett, and you look at Berkshire Hathaway, they are a holding company and they hold a whole bunch of businesses.
Right.
And that's why they house so much value and they can afford to pay dividends, and they have a $350,000 stock because of the fact that they hold so much value. You are essentially doing the same thing and saying, hey, you know what? We're not going to use the cash. We're going to keep the cash in our bank so we have a strong treasury and we don't put ourselves in a dangerous situation, which is what a lot of other companies have done, put themselves almost into bankruptcy and bankruptcy protection. And you said, we're going to use our stock, at which point in time, when it makes sense, we'll just roll back and go right to the NASDAQ.
Correct. And I think that's more of a Q2 affair next year. Q3, which is fine, but if the stock rises, who knows? I mean, we've seen as fast as these stocks can go down, they can come up. And a lot of people were very critical of me of being quiet when the stock was being hammered at 3 cents. And the reason I was quiet is because I had earnings. I couldn't sit there and shout from a perch, look, everything is going to be good. All I could say was, look, we maintain guidance until we released earnings. Now I can say, look, we have an accelerated pace. We're going to accelerate even more. And you have to look at this sort of the way we're looking at these COVID charts in a strange way, right? Where once it starts going, it starts to really accelerate. And that's what you're seeing with some of the guys back east. But I keep saying it is, give me a national playing field and I will crush everybody. We will crush everybody, right? They cannot compete. They don't have the economies of scale. And with all due respect, right? We are a little engine in a big spot, in the perfect spot, and we have grows that are massive coming online. 6-acre campus at UVI, we can put up 500 per site. So 500, 2,500 lights there. The only thing we're missing right now in our California portfolio is greenhouse. I'm negotiating something there right now. The beauty also of some of this greenhouse and indoor stuff is this whole carbon credit stuff. So what we're seeing with financing, if we use LEDs with some HPS, which is high pressure sodium, but we use mostly LEDs, is that the overall cost of capital of putting these up is around 11 to 12%, which is unheard of in cannabis. I mean, look at True Relief's last debt deal was, I think, at 15% or 14%, right? Or Harvest's last deal. I mean, now that you're seeing some bought deals getting done at discounts, but you know, 11% debt is pretty good stuff if we can actually pull it off. But again,
Absolutely.
if you look at the way we do debt, we never do recourse to the parent. So if we put up a project like Bar X, the mortgages sit on that project without any recourse to Halo. So we do project-specific financing to keep Halo itself protected.
Very good. Very smart. Very smart. So for someone that is looking to invest in Halo Labs and they're looking at the price today, they're looking at, you know, where you're going and what can we expect? Obviously, you can't give us forward-looking statements, but what is 2021 going to look like?
What you can expect is, well, I just showed you right now with Winberry that we're at 30 million annually in Oregon, right?
Huge.
Now that's not including the fact that we've been growing at 27 to 30% quarter over quarter. Okay, so you can impute that in. Just even bring it down to 20%, because as you get more scale and become bigger, your growth rate will go down. Now, so Oregon's pretty much dialed in, and if you look at it, it's a BCG matrix. It's starting to turn out to be a little bit of what we call the cash cow. So the stars in our alignment are really California, because California, we think we have a ton of room to grow, but California starts and ends with cultivation. So you need to have your cultivation lined up. He who has large, cost-effective cultivation with the right strains and the right brand partners at the right segments will win in California. And what we've seen in California is a lot of volatility at the top. So Raw Garden, top, something happens, down. Falcon, all their pre-rolls and everything top, something happens a little down. We're seeing a lot of volatility in California, whereas in Oregon, we're seeing a little bit more consistency where, you know, we were what, 3, now we're number 1 with Winberry. We have one more acquisition lined up that'll give us even a more distant one there. But Oregon, you're seeing a little bit more consistency. In California, you're seeing a lot more opportunity. And internationally, you're seeing the most opportunity, but that opportunity is going to manifest itself towards the end of 2021, 2022. But you'll start seeing that revenue grow as we start spending more time in California and start building out more assets in California in 2021. And so we don't need to go into Arizona. We don't need to go into Colorado. We don't need to go into New Jersey. We have enough runway with what we got going on in California and internationally.
And do you think that, like, apparently it looks like Joe Biden has won, assuming nothing crazy happens, does that really benefit Halo, or does it make any difference?
It massively benefits us, because when we started Halo in Andreas's chicken coop, Philip, I, and Andreas in, I don't know, like 2007 or 2006, the whole vision, not 2006, sorry, 2016, the vision was that Hillary Clinton was going to win and we would have federal legalization. And if you look outside our Medford facility, we have train tracks. So you can literally open the back doors, roll oil onto those tracks, and ship that all the way to New York, right? So that was the vision. And then Trump won, and we had 4 years of sort of what I call slogging it out state by state. Now, I think federal legalization is going to come quicker than most. And my mantra keeps being the same thing. I don't know of another company that is better positioned for a federally open environment like you have in Canada than Halo.
That's fantastic.
From a manufacturing and cultivation perspective, right? We don't have the retail doors in Chicago. We don't have the retail doors in New York, but we can sure supply, anything from dabs to infused pre-rolls, to every sort of edible, be it a Tootsie Roll, be it, some of the best concentrates. We have probably now, I would say SKU wise, over 100 SKUs we offer, between Oregon and California, not including flavors.
Have you thought about moving towards that model that TruLeaf is using, which is just opening up dispensary after dispensary after dispensary after dispensary, because it's clearly working for them? Like they're
Right.
killing.
Right. It does work for them, and it works for them now because they have a protected environment. True Relief and the East Coast guys are walled off. In New Jersey, they're 5 players. In West Virginia, there are 4 players. In Florida, there may be 15 players, but True Relief had a first mover. Let them tangle with people like us that don't work in oligopolistic spaces. We built number 1 market share in Oregon, where there are over 600 dispensaries, right? Of which Nectar's the biggest with 24, right? One of our best clients.
Yeah.
And there are over 100 manufacturers, and there are over 200 cultivators. It's not 10 or 12. We thrive in an open market. If America opens up, right?
Sky's the limit.
Yeah, that's my view. These guys, and they're smart. They've gone after protective markets at big capital. The hand that was dealt to us is being in the most fiercely competitive markets. Oregon, California are the most fiercely competitive markets. Colorado's now opened up. It's fiercely competitive. Arizona's opening up, but it's still limited. There's still some big guys there, right? Washington State, you have to be a resident, so it's closed. No public companies allowed. But Oregon and California are the fiercest markets. They're the most competitive markets. Be it black market, be it white market, be it just anyone can get a license basically. So the point is that we have thrived in much more intensely competitive environments than the companies you've mentioned.
If there was one thing that you would want investors to take from this interview, if there was one thing you would want investors to know right now about Halo that you want them to really think about, what would it be?
That we have a plan. We've stuck to our plan. The plan has bared fruit 1 quarter before we thought it would. We are doing really well, and we're well positioned in the short term, in the medium term, and the long term. And we don't have what I call any of these impending threats of loan to own debt, of some form of litigation, some form of, you see our financials. Those financials are reviewed by our auditors. You see that there's no ongoing concern issue. It's WYSIWYG. What you see is what you get. And what I'm saying is not some sort of projection into the future, but the reality of today on a pro forma basis.
And if someone wanted to get in contact with you to make an investment or is interested in working with you, joint ventures, joint venture partners, LOI opportunities, what's the best way for them to get in contact with you?
We have info@halocanna.com, and I see everything that comes through to info. And then, a lot of, shareholders will tell you I'm pretty responsive. I try to be responsive. I haven't been able to be as responsive on Twitter because I've just been so busy working, right? So a lot of people are like, well, why don't you answer me? Well, that's because I'm busy working. So typically I'll catch up on Sundays. So Sunday's a day where I spend a good 8 hours just catching up on email and organizing stuff. So if I don't get back to people, let's say during the week, just give me until Sunday and I'll get back to you.
Well, Kiran, I'm super, super impressed with your last earnings report. I listened to the entire conference call. We actually live streamed it. How many employees do you have now? Like 100?
Oh, more than that. Right now we're at about 200 and growing.
200. So creating jobs,
right?
No debt, money in the bank, and positive EBITDA, positive cash flow, company that's moving in the right direction, guys. Halo LABS CEO Kiran Sidhου. Thank you, Kiran, for joining us again. I wish you all the best of luck in your future endeavors. Continue all your hard work and dedication towards your company and your shareholders. It shows. And I think this is big news, guys. Kiran kind of let out the bag that he wants to get on the NASDAQ. So put Halo on your watch list, HALO in Canada on the NEO exchange, AGEEF on the OTCQX exchange on your watch list. Put it on your radar. Thank you so much, Kiran, for taking your time with us today. Have yourself a great day.
Hey, thank you.
Thank you guys for watching. Have yourselves a great day. I know I didn't get into all your guys' questions. I really wanted to focus on what Kiran had to say today. So maybe next time we do a live stream, we'll go through some of your questions a little bit more. But if you guys have any questions, just please feel free to message Kiran directly. Thank you, Kiran. Have a nice day. Thank you guys for watching, and we'll talk to you guys soon.